Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me? Awesome. There is a QR code up here. If you'd like to follow along with my slide deck, you can scan that QR code. Follow along with me if you have trouble seeing in the back or anything like that. Today, I'm going to be speaking on providing effortless insights to your customers. Before I begin, can I get a show of hands? How many of you have a customer-facing platform, application, website, anything like that? Okay, good amount. How many of you provide reports to your customers through that platform? Awesome, because if no one had their hand raised, this was going to be really awkward. I'm really mad at Shaq. I had a lot of jokes in mind. He came up, he just killed it, and screw that guy. As long as he doesn't hear that. As long as he doesn't hear that. So what we did at our company, we leveraged Domo Everywhere to speed up the report deployments for our customers from weeks, sometimes months, to a matter of minutes. Over the next 30, 35 minutes, I'm going to show you how we did that. I work for a company called RollKall. We are an extra duty management service. What that is we provide it for police officers. Mainly, we are working on first responders and like fire EMS as well. Extra duty, if you're unfamiliar with it, police officers will work their normal job, their on-duty job, and then they can sign up for extra duty jobs. That's if you've ever been to like a sports arena, you see police there, security agencies, they're there working an extra duty job, meaning it's outside their normal jobs. What we saw is that there was no really management service for this. They would work the jobs, but then it would take a while for them to get paid, and we saw that there was a big opportunity for us to fix this. But since we started, we were just doing management, extra duty kind of scheduling, things like that, but we moved on to much more. We do invoicing, we do payments. We also offer something called instant pay. So an officer can work a job. The moment they clock out, we will actually front the money for them. They don't have to wait for the client to pay that back. And then once the client pays the invoice back, we just recoup our costs. With all that in mind, we've offered over 1 billion in off-duty payments. We have over 30 million hours in off-duty jobs that have been worked through our system now. We're spread across 38 states. We have over 66,000 officers and personnel. And we have over 1,400, I almost said 1,000, I wish. We have over 1,400 law enforcement agencies, departments, and fire. So where we started, it was very small. We have rapidly grown, and we are continuing to grow as we speak. One thing about RollKall is we like to collect our shields. They're kind of like Pokemon. We have to have them all. So at our office, we actually have this wall just entirely dedicated to shields. It's really cool to see. Every department has their unique shield that their officers wear and represent. On that top row, you can see Detroit all the way to Honolulu. So we are spread massively. And through our service, we also offer reporting to our customers. Now, again, when that was just scheduling, it's not a big problem. That's just kind of a lookup. You return the information, it's fine. But as we got into payments, as we got into instant pay, we started doing more financial information, working with Stripe. That is sensitive information. So we had to build all those reports in our application. And we found that that was just a little difficult. I'll kind of explain why we looked at that and how we're leveraging Domo to fix that. What am I, besides a little crazy? I am a business intelligence engineer at RollKall. So I have been in the software team for quite a while, longer than I'd like to admit sometimes. I have over 10 years in the software engineering role. I've worked with Ruby, Python, and .NET. 10 years in an analyst role. I've worked with Domo, Looker, and Tableau, and I can tell you Domo is the best by far. I've worked as a data engineer for about 5 years. I've worked mainly with SQL Engine, SQL services, and I've been a data architect for 3. If you're looking at those numbers, looking at me and going, that math isn't mathin', you've never worked at a startup before, because I can be all of those in a single year. And I have done that as well. Thanks, Stan. That's my boss. So when I was brought into RollKall, I was told that the reporting, it wasn't where we wanted it to be. We really wanted to speed things up. We wanted to get to basically the next century. We were working old. So basically, reporting was our problem child. Why? Well, we had long development cycles. From a small report change to an entirely new report, all of it needed to be added to the development cycle and released when possible. That takes time. Intricate queries, where we started as the scheduling platform, we've added payments, split payments, instant pay, things get very complicated. Those queries are all coded on the back end, and we have to update them whenever we make a new change. They were very complex. Because of the complexity, we were starting to run into timeout issues. So a large department like Miami PD, for example, if they were to try and pull data for just a few weeks, typically we were timing out. We were hitting that issue and we weren't able to pull the data for them because of the the volume of data that we were trying to pull. And this probably happens to a lot of you. Customers became very dependent on reports. So if you change a single column in that report, we typically would call back the very same day saying, hey, you broke my report that I export, change it back. And if you've spent like 2-3 months working on a report and they say change it back, you're sad. So we were living in the past. Looking at long development cycles, this is typically what a report generation kind of the cycle it would go through. Step one, your project manager, your account manager is going to gather requirements from your customer. That's going to go through, they'll write all those down into tickets and write those for the developer. Developer will go through, code all these things, pass it to QA. QA tries to check everything. Typically, they find stuff and goes back to development, and you're sad then too. But then there's also customer feedback. You will give this to the customer, say, is this what you were looking for? They will either say, yes, but can we add more things? Or, that's not what I was looking for at all, let's change everything. Then you have more development. Once you finish that, it goes to a release. Keep in mind that if any point in this something fails, if something fails in QA, if customer doesn't like it, it typically goes back to the beginning. So you're constantly just going through this cycle. It is a vicious, horrible cycle, and I wanted a way to fix this. Looking at this on a calendar, this is typically what it looks like. You gather your requirements for 2 weeks. You have a 2-week sprint cycle. That's where your development will happen. You have your QA testing, customer feedback, and additional development. In that stage, you can see that it took about 2 months to get this done. At RollKall, we release the third week of every month. So as you can see, the little carrot on the bottom of February, we actually missed the release date. So we would have to wait until the next release in March, meaning this is almost a 3-month period. We tried to shoot for it, and this is generating an entirely new report. This isn't like a small change that you're working on. You're trying to generate something entirely new. So what I found, doing all this research, essentially, we're reporting at the speed of mud. We're not going fast. Process was inefficient, left customers waiting. So I really wanted to design a way to fix this. I came up with a plan called the quadruple D. It's like Guy Fieri's triple D, but one better. Really what we wanted to do is just attack this so that we could continually scale and build on this. Going through this, data modeling, we would build new data sets, or we basically take a look at our data sets and determine if they're good enough for our customers. We'd start some dashboarding. I'm not going to go too in-depth in dashboarding. I know most of you probably know how to build a dashboard here now. There's a little bit of development and a single deploy. Keep in mind, I'm the only business intelligence engineer, and I did develop and deploy by myself in this period of time. So it's not a hard process to implement. It's actually very easy to implement. You will need a little bit of development going forward, just to kind of keep things up to date, but really you can do it with a small team. It's not that hard. Over the next 35 minutes, I'm going to show you kind of how we did it. Started with data modeling. So we had been using Domo for a few years at this point. Been using it internally. We had senior leadership team, account managers, sales reps. They were all using Domo. They used it very well. But we wanted to determine, is that good enough for our customers? Because we need to offer even better to our customers. So looking at the pros and cons of a data set. These are internal data sets. Our pros, the data is established. It's already being used. It's being used all over our company. Since it's been years, we've had a ton of cards and dashboards that have been created. So those are already existing. And many of us that work with the data are familiar with the structure and its nuances. What beast modes to use, when not to use them, which data you want to push to your senior leadership team and which data you don't. There's that for your pros. But there also was a lot of cons that we were looking at. The data is modeled only for internal consumption, meaning we're giving that data set every bit of information we can. You don't necessarily want to do that for your customers. Again, along those lines, we include some sensitive financial information. Since we work with payments, Stripe, and things like that, we had transaction IDs that we don't really think the customer should have. And if those were to be given to the wrong clients or anything, it could kind of cause some confidential information to be shared. If you have a senior leadership team like I do, constant changes happen. They are constantly asking for new data fields, different calculations, things like that. If you're changing things that frequently, it may disrupt the data that's available to the customer. And really, you want that data to be uptime as close to 100% as possible. And if you're like me, or if you're like us, verbiage changed since you started the company. So what we called one thing originally now is being referred to as something different. Do you have it one way, 10 ways in the data set? You really want to kind of cut that down as much as possible. Looking at these cons, essentially what we found out was Messy data, sad David. I was very sad looking at the internal data sets. Here are a few examples of our data fields for internal, and you'll kind of see what I mean. We had projected rev, new logo end. That's not that hard to understand. We had Stripe transaction ID. Not hard to understand, very hard to read because there's no spaces. We had variable gross profit minus WC that is snake cased. No one outside of our company knows what WC is. We had, this is real, Ben's Tuesday calc for invoice total plus tax. I didn't make it, don't blame me. Yeah, and test 3 question mark is also a real data field that we have. It's used in dashboards. I hate it. So we found all that. Those are all real data points. We also had inconsistent naming. Since we started, we've had multiple names for an invoice. It's been called RK Pay, V1, V3, officer invoicing, agency invoicing. We're gonna have V4 in a second, geez. We wanted to make sure that if it was an invoice, it was an invoice. Didn't determine like what name you called it. As long as you called it invoice, we knew exactly what we were talking about. But how do we get to that point with this data set? Well, we had to clean it up. We had some spring cleaning. So what we did, process that we went through, we took all the queries that we basically had for our internal data sets, copied them over, and decided we needed to go through all the names to give them consistent naming. We were gonna space it all out. We're gonna make it very easy to understand and very readable. Also, if you don't know, that if you're working with a schema in Domo, you can actually go through and add descriptions to each one of your data points. So you can go through, if you edit the schema, when you add a description to it, when you're working with that data set in a card later on, there's a little info icon that pops up on the data field. You can click that and it'll show you the description. So you don't have to explain everything in your title. You can actually give a nice clean title and a longer description. So anyone internally can actually use that and build things themselves. So with our spring cleaning, projected rev became projected client revenue. Nice. Stripe transaction ID, we spaced it out so it's a little bit easier to read, and now we're only including the last 6 digits, meaning we scrubbed a lot of the financial and sensitive information. We're only including enough that the customer needs. They can reconcile their information, their invoices, but if it were to end up in someone else's hands, it wouldn't be able to do anything with it. Variable gross profit became gross profit, and we added a description to the schema. It says does not include workers' comp, which is WC. Ben's Tuesday calc, we didn't copy it over. No Ben's on external need to be confused. We want Ben's internally to be confused. Everyone else is fine. And test 3, well, we kind of just pretend like it doesn't exist still. What this gave us was a fresh, clean start. We had a readable, clear, concise name. We had a beneficial description to every one of our data points. And what that ended up giving us was an easily identifiable but still informative data point. Essentially, what this gave us empowered our employees internally to work with this data and build their own insights. They don't need to come to the business intelligence or the data engineering team. They could go through, if they had any questions about the data points, they could look at the description. If they still have questions, they can come to us. But essentially, they could play with the data and then bring it to us saying, hey, how does this dashboard look? This has been awesome because it kind of allows them to answer their own questions before coming to us. Keep in mind, we still get plenty of questions from them, but it answers quite a few of them. So through this process, we generated new external-facing data sets with clean data that we can continue using and building upon. The next step was dashboarding. And again, I'm not going to go too in-depth into dashboarding. Just wanted to kind of show how we're approaching it here. Missed the button. OK, going back to this slide for 1 second. Development. When we were building these reports in our application, they were very developer-centric. If you needed to build a query, went to the developer. Anytime someone clicks the button for the report and how it generates in the application, that's a developer. If you need to style individual columns or cells even, if you want to highlight things, that's actually development time that needs to go in. And poor developers were pulling their hair out. I'm one of them. And then again, if it goes to internal testing and a word is spelled wrong, a column header is spelled wrong, back to the developer. So it just ended up that developers had a lot of work to do here in this cycle, and we kind of relied very heavily on them. But using Domo, we don't have to do this so much anymore. Domo allows us to get on a single screen share, Teams, Google Meet, or anything like that. We can all work together to build the dashboard at the same time. So product managers are giving us our acceptance criteria. The developer is grabbing the necessary data fields, bringing those over at the same time. QA is kind of checking the data. We can also get the customer on the call at the same time. And we can determine whether we're building the exact dashboard that they want for the series or not. So basically, this allowed us to move forward a lot. We sped things up, and this is actually sped up. This sped up our process exponentially to begin with, and we have even more to go after this. But Domo was key in this. I do want to give a shout out to apps. If you haven't used them in Domo, they are fantastic. They basically allow multiple dashboards to be used on the same location, or if you're thinking of like a Chrome, it's multiple tabs across the single Chrome window. On the left, you'll see Pro Job Overview, and at the bottom, you can see those are our tabs for that single overview. So if they're looking at the Jobs Overview report, they can actually look at their job alerts, call-offs and assignments, applicant log and fairness, and their fatigue and limits. All that information is in a single report, basically. What we try to do is kind of group similar information together into reports, so that way we don't have a bunch of applications or dashboards. We're kind of grouping them all together, and that makes it a whole lot easier to maintain as the BI side. This screenshot was taken about a month ago, and we probably have 4 times this amount, though, with that being said, because it really expanded. We are also offering custom reports to customers. And I will show you, I'll basically go through how we are leveraging that to build revenue for our system by offering custom reports that are just very easy to spin up. The beauty of apps, cards, dashboards, and Domo, embedding it just takes a secret 5-digit code, a magic 5-digit code, not secret. On the upper right, so this goes right to left to right. Sorry. You'll see up top there's the share icon, and there is embed app because we're working with an app. Once you click that, you're given a few options. You can allow interactions and filtering by your customer. You can allow them to export the information directly from your application. You can set the default height and width. And then there is a few embed options there. Excuse me. Off, private, and public. Public is going to be used when you're OK with anyone accessing that data. So anyone on the website or anyone on the World Wide Web, if you want them to be able to see that information, you can choose public. That's if you want to do like a directory through Domo or something like that. Private is what we're using, and it allows us to authenticate and filter data to the correct customers without the need for PDP or Domo users. Once you've chosen which embed option you're going to use, that little 5-digit code that's sparkling down there, that is the code we're going to use. That is basically the key that unlocks, well, one of the keys that unlocks the possibilities of our embedded insights. So we built these dashboards. I skipped through building the dashboard because I don't think you guys need to see that. But we have our clean data sets. We have our beautiful dashboards that you spent plenty of time together working on. Now we need to do a little bit of development. We wanted to plan for a no or low code deploy. And one of the sayings we kind of threw around was, oh, and we call our reports insights. That's what we call here. It's been a little confusing at Domo. I apologize, but that's what we call it. The saying we had was, I want to design a set of insights over my first cup of coffee and have it in my customer's hands by my second cup of coffee. That's the speed that we're looking at. We can build these reports, have them in their hands in a matter of minutes. For the no low-code deploy, there was a few key points that we wanted to hit. We wanted it to be self-service, meaning that we wanted our super admins to be able to add or maintain these reports for their customers. It doesn't require a code change. It doesn't require a developer to go in, anything like that. We wanted to make sure that there was no downtime. Whenever you added a new report, unlike before, you don't have to bring your whole entire application down. You can just push that out, and it's automatically in the customer's account. We wanted high flexibility. So we wanted to be able to grant access to only relevant information, again, without PDP permissions or the need for one-on-one Domo users. If you've worked with PDP permissions before, this is huge because those can get very complicated very fast, especially when you're working at the scale that we are with over 66,000 users. And we wanted a rapid release. So we wanted to be able to add or update these insights, these reports, and immediately have it in the customer's account. Basically, they need to refresh their page. Is there any water up here? No. Okay. Fun. We wanted to be able to add this insight, immediately have it available for them. So it starts with one. And if you're singing Linkin Park in your head right now, I got you. It starts with one table. Really what we were looking at is that we wanted to build this table for 100 customers, but that whole plan would still work for 100,000. We could scale this indefinitely. The way we were building insights was based on department. Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not spilled on the power strip. Our insights were based on department. So when we were adding these reports, it was per department. You could change this, and it could be by user. It could be by user type. We have other columns in our table, but this is kind of the general idea, and this should be really all you need in order to get this up to speed. We have that embed code. That's that 5-digit code that we talked about that is magic. We had permissions. So since this is based on a department, we were having, is it an admin user type? Is it a staff user type? It's a permission level, which will restrict what they can see. There's a tier, and this is where revenue comes in. We offer 2 separate tiers in RollKall. There's the standard and the pro version of Insights. Pro version of Insights, their tier, allows us to charge a subscription based on how many users they have in their agency. So we're actually generating revenue from these reports that we built, and we've just kind of added more information to. A little bit of cosmetic information, title, description, icon class, and custom filter. There's 2 keys that unlock the possibilities: the embed code, custom filter. I will touch on the custom filter shortly, but with those 2, possibilities are amazing. So in terms of self-service, we built an internal tool for our super admins. Here you can see this is the Beverly Hills Police Department. There's the Configure Reports button. And Emily, I just saw this. This should be Configure Insights. So we need to change that in code later on. But on the right, you'll see the modal that opens up. So we're basically adding these insights live to our customer. Right now, we're working on the compliance overview. We're choosing the icon for it. And then there's that embed code. Now, since we're using private embed, I'm fine with that embed code being up there. None of you can access that. This is completely secure because you don't have an access token to our instance. That's really great about this because it does kind of help out with security concerns and things like that. This is completely secure. I'm fine with that. I also work with police officers, so, you know. And then we have our permission set. So this is admin and then a description. This allows us to go in. Super admins can go in and edit, delete, change these as much as they want, and it is immediately reflective on the customer's account, shown here. So this is our report grid that the customer can see. We have a few different information. Custom is basically based on their filter, or if we've created that specifically for them. So we can see an account manager can come in, look at that, and say, oh, these are custom reports that only are for this customer. Good to know. The other ones are default reports. It gives the account managers, the sales reps, the CX team great visibility into what the customer is looking at. So all these are done. We have these great data sets, but they contain every customer's account. How do we make sure that only the customer accessing this report can see only their information? Well, that is where programmatic filtering comes in. Programmatic filtering, this is the complex slide, the easy slide is next. Programmatic filtering is a new SSO integration with cookieless auth through a single service account. Like PDP, it is forced row-level security defined in server-side code that cannot be seen or edited by viewers. Basically meaning it is completely safe and secure. The viewer cannot go through your iframe, gain access to your Domo instance, and change anything. Since it's all happening on server-side, they don't see anything in the UI. And it basically includes that you don't need a dedicated external service to make this happen. For those of you that are not developer-centric, programmatic filtering is a long way to say magic. It ends the requirements to manage even more PDP policies. You don't need to do this for this type of integration. It removes the need for embed viewers to be full users. So you don't need to add your customers as viewers in your Domo instance in order to make this work. They just stay users in your own instance. Works fine. Mitigates the risk of embed viewer login to the full instance, which I just talked about. And it makes sure that it's you're only showing the approved and relevant content for the viewer. This is from Domo, and I love that it's for the good of the company, trademarked. Like, you guys took that. How do we implement programmatic filtering? It's actually fairly simple. Up top, this is a data string that is generated. You have your embed code, which we've talked about, and SQL filter. Domo currently allows for 2 different types of programmatic filtering. There are standard filters and SQL filters. If you've ever written SQL before, these programmatic filters are like a where clause for your query. And if you have done that, you know that once the data is returned from a where clause, you can't filter it back from before the query. It's only reduced to the data you're looking at after the query. So what we're seeing is standard filters. They were the original release for Domo. They're a little more restricted, but they still work perfectly fine. There you're seeing that we want to make sure that all the data that we have in this report, we want the jurisdiction to be filtered to either Miami or Jacksonville. But with SQL filters, we can go one step further. Here we're looking at jurisdictions in Miami and Jacksonville, and either the vehicle name is in marked or unmarked, or the vehicle type is an SUV or motorcycle. So we're actually passing a lot of filters that we want before we even render the data back to the customer. This gives us a lot of possibilities. So our default one is where department ID is X. If we don't have a filter set up for that report, it's just going to return back whatever the agency ID is. And it's just filtering down to their information. But we can go further than that. We can filter down to individuals. So a single officer, if we're looking for officer reports, they want to see what jobs they worked last year. We can do that with that filter. Do it with single client. We could do it with groups. So it could be where personnel ID is in X. So you're passing an array or a list. Or you're saying the supervisor ID. I want to see all their personnel. We're doing it for full departments. So if we want departments to see all their jobs, all their personnel, or the coordinator who works across multiple departments, we're not restricting it down to just one department. If a coordinator works for multiple departments offering jobs, they'd like to see their information as well. You can also not pass a filter. So this allows for all seeing. This is our internal super admins. If they want to access the reports through the application, they're not accessing directly through Domo, keeps them kind of in one central location. Sometimes sales reps, their minds wander and they get lost in what they're doing. So this keeps them sticky to our application RollKall. And then all this information, they could then filter it down to departments if they wanted to. So it gives them kind of the flexibility. They're staying in the application. They can, we hyperlink in some of our apps so that they could look at an invoice that's still inside the application. It just keeps them all kind of centralized, not kind of wandering about. So we have our data sets. We have our dashboards. We've done a little bit of development. We need a single deploy to make this work. And this is where authentication is going to come in. So how RollKall works is we have a single API that kind of does a lot of the work on the back end, and then we have microservices that the customer accesses. So whether that's our department portal, our personnel portal, our mobile app, they all basically connect through the API, submit their request, and then that returns back to the UI. By implementing the authentication into the API, we don't have to replicate that code in anywhere else. All we're doing is just creating a render in the microservice, but the API is handling kind of the heavy lifting there. So if officer logs into the personnel portal, they want to see their reports. That call goes to the API. That user is authenticated through the API. We get an embed token, passes it back to the personnel portal. Everything is happening basically in the API with a little bit of visibility and rendering in the portal. This section, I apologize, is a little nerdy, but I will try to simplify it as much as possible. This is generating the embed URL. So in order to get an access token, you would need to be an admin in Domo, and then you need to kind of create a developer account. From there, you can create a client ID in secret. This is how typical authentication works with this type. So we would create an access token using our client ID in secret. That method is not in here, but I also added the comments for what each bit of code is doing in case you are unfamiliar with it. Once we have our access token, we're passing in the embed code, and then we are rendering the embed token. So that takes that access token, embed code, any department information, and is passing it through our system. And basically what that does is it creates a hash string that is passed to your iframe. This makes sure that no one can access it on the front end. Since this is all happening in the UI, inside that endpoint, it's all happening on the back end and no one can access it. The only thing that's accessed up front is when that hash is kind of chopped out. Then, on the front end, this is really all we are implementing for each one of our microservices, is these two bits of code. There's a little bit of HTML, which is what the website renders, and then the iframe is where your information is going to be displayed. So again, on the left is just basic HTML code. You have your action URL and your embed token, and you are posting this. And then on the right is the iframe. It's taking the embed key that we got from our API, splitting it up into a few pieces, and then pushing that to the iframe. What that does is that just makes sure that everything that is passed to it can be displayed properly. And this includes filtering the data. This includes do they have access to it? All of it is taken on the back end, so you don't have to worry about it. Right up here is a video of this working in real time. This is for Gotham PD. I took Batman stats, put them in here, made a dashboard, and then we're going to show it. What I would say is on the first page, pick a number to look at and just kind of memorize that number. Because you'll see that it is actually being filtered programmatically on the back end because this is not just including Gotham stats, but also Arkham stats, whatever Batman trivia you want to do. Let's see if this starts automatically. Go. Okay. So we built this dashboard specifically for Gotham City PD. Remember, Batman can't do everything. We're going to distribute. We're going to embed that app. Here's our options. We want the customer to be able to export, and we're going to choose private embed. At the very bottom, we'll take additional information. That's our secret code. We'll copy that, and then we'll move over to the RollKall platform. Here we're in Gotham City's account. We're going to go down to configure reports. We have some reports already set up for the customer, but we're going to add a new one. I sped this up because my typing's slow. We added the embed code. We're going to set it for admin and staff, and we're going to add this to the customer's account. We can see it was automatically added to that data table. Now we're going to log in to Gotham City. We have a way to impersonate. Sped up the load times. Go to reports, and you can see that villain stats is already enabled on the system's account, customer's account. Logging in, numbers are different because they've been filtered to specifically Gotham City. This does not include Arkham's or anyone else's. So this is being pre-rendered before filter, making sure that the customer is only seeing the data that they need access to. I had fun building these cards, by the way. Batman funding, Batman responses. Oh, Batman only responded 9 times? I got that backwards. Now, this solution is awesome. It works great. It's not perfect, though. It doesn't allow for usage statistics out of the box, I should say. So if you want to know how many of Miami's users are accessing this report during the month of March, by default, we don't have a way to do that. But we can do it with an external service. You can use like Datadog or something like that. Or you can build an audit log inside your own system. So once they click that link, you insert a record into your database, and then you could kind of build your own audit log statistics from there. This is not live data. A lot of your customers, if they're accessing reports directly through your system, they are going to want live data. They're just used to it. But with Domo, you have to extract that data. Sometimes that can take a little while. There's a few ways around this. For us, it's not a big deal. Our customers don't need live up to the second data because their officers will work large chunks of time, like a shift. So the way to mitigate that, you optimize your refresh schedule, and you could set your expectations that this is not live data. And then some may not see this as a problem, but this almost gives you too much flexibility. You run the risk of becoming a custom report provider. That's not always a bad thing. If you build a plan that basically charges your customer to build custom insights specifically for them, and remember, it's not hard to build these custom for them. We did it in that single call. But if you set up a payment plan, or not a payment plan, just basically a charge for custom insights, you can begin generating revenue without that much work being put into it. It does help your company. Also, the way we built this is it allows internal users to add insights to any account. That was maybe a mistake because we've had a few of our account managers add reports that are destined for one account to a different one, and we have to go back and fix that. Thankfully, the data's already, since the programmatic filtering is in place, it was just showing 0 cards, but you just need to have that proper training with your account management. Also, what this is doing, since we do have a huge AI component with Domo right now, These embedded dashboards allow AI chat to be there as well. So once you have this done, once you've built your AI component, your AI layer, you can add that directly to these dashboards and enable them for your customers' reports. So you're actually enabling AI chat in your system for your customers to be able to access their own data and chew through that. So that is something I didn't go through here because I didn't want to go through AI, but that is a huge bonus that we're going to be working on as well. With that, don't let reporting bottlenecks slow you down. Future-proof your insights with Domo Everywhere. If you have questions, feel free to connect with me. That QR is my LinkedIn, so you are free to add me. This has been a passion project for me, and I've loved working on it. So I thank you for your time, and if we have any questions, I'd love to answer. I know. No one's asking questions. Okay. She's coming. Yes. Watch, I just did this the longest way possible. Almost there. There you go. Yes.
Oh, I wanted to ask if the tabs within the app also change based on who's accessing, or only the data within the dashboards is managed?
Can you ask again? Sorry, that was.
So for example, if you have multiple different tabs, but you don't want necessarily every user to see all of the tabs, is there a way to?
Yes. So you have to build a separate app, which if you have one, you clone it and you just remove the tabs. But because of those permission levels that we set, only staff and admin, things like that, you can actually set what dashboard they're available or what app they can see. And that way, in the same account, even if it's a compliance overview, staff can see one version, admin can see a different, coordinator can see a different one, and you're just building that down.
I had another one. So how do you manage the user groups and permissions in this case? Do you do it within the Domo admin, or do you have to do that yourself in the back end?
The filtering?
Yeah, how do you manage user permissions? So what data they see and so on. Do you use the groups within Domo admin, or do you do it separately?
No, actually, we're not managing that at all. So whatever dashboard they have access to, that's the one that they're able to see. So we're not changing what dashboard or what user groups need visibility. Because of the programmatic filtering, we actually have removed the need for user groups entirely.
Oh, so well, essentially you would be managing them on the back end, kind of like in an Excel file, or are you just kind of?
No, they're users in the application itself.
Fair enough.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi. You mentioned that you had an instance where someone accidentally added an unintended insight to a dashboard. Do you have any processes in place to prevent accidental changes to existing cards on dashboards or anything
What
like
happened is they added the wrong dashboard to an account on our side. So most of our users don't have access to edit those cards. That's normally just inside the data team. So what they did is they just kind of gave someone a report that they weren't supposed to have access to. But because of the programmatic filtering, it still filtered the data down to what they should have. And so it was just a new report that they were surprised that they had in their system. Oh, in the back.
Yeah, so I was wondering how you handle maintenance for so many different versions of the same application with just slightly different tab combinations.
Yep. So using that table that we built that has all the departments and their reports and things like that, we're ingesting that into Domo to see everyone that has a similar report. Whenever we need to do maintenance or anything like that, we will actually make sure that everything that is related to that is updated at the same time. So we're using the Avengers, we use the stones to destroy the stones. We're using Domo to fix the issues that we see in Domo. Anyone else? Awesome. Thank you, everyone.